Hello and welcome to Agora, the Warragul Citizen's online current affairs and chat programme. I'm Will Coolidge. Today I'm joined by a member from McMillan, Mr. Russell Broadbent. Mr. Broadbent, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure, Will.
Firstly, on the National Broadband Network, you made your position some time ago that you're standing against the network's introduction. However, the NBN's experience truck was recently in Warragul to give samples of, or just to explain to people what the network could do for them as such. The report I had from them was that there was absolutely no negative response to the introduction of the NBN. How have you determined the electorate's opinion to the issue, given the positive response that the NBN co has had in the area?
Well, the NBN is always going to have a positive response because it's the most expensive technological program ever run out in Australia. So I'm not knocking the quality of the service that it may provide. What the coalition has always said is that it will be very, very, very expensive, and we believe we could do it better and cheaper. However, in saying that, what I've recently said is the fact that a place like Moe has been left out of the NBN, which I find incredulous, is that my point of view is we will not tear down or dig up anything that is in place when we come into government. We'd like to build on what is already there. So the longer this government goes, the more work goes into the NBN, the more that work will not be undone by a coalition government.
If a coalition government were to come into power, the infrastructure that is available for the NBN presently, would that still be placed under government control, or would that be auctioned off to private bidders?
It's for others to decide those particular issues, but a lot of private contractors are doing the work currently. Any contract entered into by a federal government will not be withdrawn by an incoming government, because contracts are contracts. Now, unless you're prepared to pay an enormous amount of money to pay a contractor out for work that they have done or plan to do or have prepared for, which is not good business practice, we will be fulfilling any contracts that are left.
Do you know how many of the contracts here have already been put in place in
No,
this area? Do you see it likely that so many contracts will be put into place that the NBN will be rolled out, especially in this area, regardless of change of government due to contracts being entered into?
I would expect where they have designated areas where they've actually contracted, and that's important to know, have they actually contracted, or are they saying we will have rolled out by such and such a date? That's different to I have signed a contract to. Now we know they've done parts of South Gippsland. That's in place. It won't change. And whatever's in place when we come to government, there will be an assessment of the NBN network.
Now, the coalition's policy on the issue is that private commercial providers or the competition of the market should expand faster broadband out into the area, regardless of government investment. Do you feel that the current competition, even in the telecommunications market, where Optus is it has only just really started to penetrate the market here, is sufficient to actually, in this area, say that that is a reasonable thing to wait for the competition to actually come in, even though we've not had, since privatisation of Telstra and such, it's still taking a very long time for telecommunications to come into the area?
Well, no, you can get fast telecommunications now by using a satellite, unless that gets too busy. And then, if everybody wants to use it at the same time, then it becomes much slower, of course. Whereas with the NBN, you wouldn't have that problem if you were lucky enough to be to be connected. Not everybody's connected. However, I think as far as competition goes, competition is always good. And it gives the supplier and the customer the opportunity to make better choices. And our whole NBN process is we believe you should have choices.
Do you feel that the choices available for telecommunications in the area at the moment are sufficient to be able to support such a policy?
I think telecommunications are changing so quickly that we don't know what the need will be even in 5 years' time.
Moving on to another pressing issue, which is the carbon tax. For the moment, I ask that we sidestep the debate on the tax and look at how things are as they are, which is the tax is coming into place. Given the fears of job losses and such that the coalition has raised repeatedly in Parliament, what have you been lobbying for this area to try and better cope with the introduction of the tax?
Well, we have been to Simon Crean and to Martin Ferguson and actually said the words, we are going to be more heavily impacted by the proposed carbon tax.
So are we in this situation?
We in regional areas. We in regional areas, and then we again in Latrobe Valley. Because we have had to cope with massive change in the past in regard to electricity privatisation, and now the demonstrable attack on the coal industry, having regard to the fact that we're going to be reliant on coal throughout the world for a long, long time to come. I would hope, personally, I just want to put this in there, I would hope that the carbon tax doesn't go ahead and there would be a change of leadership in the Labor Party before June, and Kevin Rudd would come in and put a stop to the carbon tax.
Do you believe that will happen though?
Well, I can only live in hope that it would happen. I thought he outlined what he'd do in his run-up for the leadership when he said, you know, he would look at the carbon tax. And what he was saying was look at the carbon tax. I think there's a very good case for our competitiveness internationally to say, all right, well, we'll leave the structure in place for an emissions trading scheme, but we will cost the carbon tax at, say, $3 instead of $23. So it would actually have no effect at this stage. When the rest of the world puts in a price on carbon, then we put in a price on carbon.
Right. But so specifically for this area, what kind of protections or what kind of replacements have you actually lobbied for in this area?
We haven't gone for specific programs for the area. We've said to government, what is your response to what you're going to do to this area?
And what has the response been?
Well, I think the response from Simon and Martin's been pretty good. I mean, they've come down here and they said, look, we're prepared to do things. We're prepared to look at carbon capture and storage, which could be the saviour for the whole of Latrobe Valley, if that works. And we have the opportunity to capture carbon and store it and then pump it into our oil capacity in the Bass Strait. We might be the only place in Australia it can be done, but if that were the case, we have plenty of coal and that would mean no emissions. So between the state government and the federal government, they've just put $200 million into that feasibility program. We're supportive of that.
Many of the concerns with that is that it hasn't been tested, largely tested yet, the carbon capture and storage.
There are those that believe it doesn't work and it's too expensive. But unless we try these things, we may not be able to have a carbon-free Latrobe Valley electricity producing future.
But given the expense, would that then outweigh the benefits, so to speak, of, outweigh the other expenses of having a carbon tax introduced?
Not if something proved to be internationally beneficial to us and to the rest of the world, if we could prove that it works here.
Now on to actual policy. Further into policy. In an interview with me in 2010, you said that you'll follow party lines on climate change policy. And I quote here, unless you saw that your party's policies were outrageously wrong and with a total inability whatsoever to deliver on climate change. There's been extensive criticism of the coalition's carbon policies heading into the last election in that they might not actually have any effect on carbon pricing or climate change. How have you reconciled that with how do you believe that the coalition's policies will actually have a meaningful effect without having an impact on businesses and locals in the area?
Well, I want to answer that in a different way. If we're arguing, will Australia's contribution to greenhouse gas emissions reduction make a difference to global warming throughout the world, I'd have to say to you no. All we're doing is setting a lead for other countries perhaps to follow, which I don't believe they will. So in the context of 2010 and the context of now, I say to you, neither party's programs will have a significant influence at all on global warming in the next 100 years. So having said that, I haven't answered your question. I'll just go to the point of your question. Why is our our program better. I think it's a matter of argument about the whole process of who has the best policies for abatement. Ours are direct action policies. Theirs are eventually market-based policies. Sounds a bit of a contradiction in terms, but there is an argument going on in Australia. What is, the government have put $10 billion into their green schemes in regard to whether it be carbon capture and storage, whether it be all the other programs. So they've got a direct action program too, which is very similar to. Well, their direct is the
direct action policies.
Well, theirs is the carbon. What do they call it? Carbon reduction schemes, or
yeah, not 100% sure myself.
Yeah, no, I read about that today.
Oh, right, that one. But in those terms, you would say that the policies are not actually all that different. Then, in terms of
outcomes, in terms of outcomes, ours are direct action policies, and we're looking closely at carbon capture and storage, especially in the soil.
Moving on to something entirely different, how was pre-selection?
Well, it didn't come to a point of pre-selection. It was mooted that somebody would stand against me. They looked at the situation and realised that they would never hope of winning. So
there's rumours that a few people were interested. Michelle Grattan published a while back. There was a senior Liberal Party branch member, and I've heard rumour of, and has been rumour of, a member of local government as well as another member of the public being interested in the position. Are you able to confirm that there have been more than one interested party trying?
No, I thought there was only one.
All right. Another thing that Michelle Grattan raised was that the branch appeared to be being stacked by the more conservative forces in the party, in a bid to try and increase the true conservative vote in the seat to try and find a new member. Do you feel that could actually have an effect on your position in the party locally? No.
People either understand where I'm coming from now after all these years, or they'll never understand where I'm coming from. I don't back off on issues. I have particular views in areas, and I'm very firm on those. They know where I stand. They know I don't take a step backwards in what I believe is the right and saying what is the right. And when you're in opposition, quite often you have to get up there and argue your point within the party. So we do give, this is the time to have arguments. Unity is everything in government, but in opposition, when you're regrouping to try and form government, you have to get in there and put your arguments, and I put them forcefully. Now, in doing that, I am going to cross across a few in my own party. That has always been the case, Will, and it won't change. And there'll always be those who, when someone comes in and takes the most marginal seat, and turns it into one of the safer seats, even only at 4.8%, but it's still one of the safer seats in Victoria. Of course there's going to be people that covered that position.
Mr. Broadbent, thank you for your time.
Thank you.